Fantastic. So thanks everyone for joining in. Today the topic is going to be all about DAOs. We are very excited at what we are doing at Foundership with respect to the Coach DAO. We'd love to talk about DAOs in general. Look at talk about some best practices. Hear from all of you on what's going on in the DAO space, what's working, what's not working, and learn from each other in this conversation. Right. That's the whole intent. So welcome everyone to the Web3Verse at Foundership, and let's get started tonight with DAOs. So Santosh, Santosh and Subindu, why don't we kickstart with you? Why do you think DAOs came into existence? And well, let's start from there. But what's a DAO, and why do we think it came into existence?
Go ahead, Shivendu, go ahead.
Yeah, so Vimlesh, I think there was the first DAO that was formed was one of the use cases, right? It was an investment DAO. It was a you can say investment grants DAO. It was called the DAO, right? But unluckily the money was hacked, right? From the smart contract. It was written to fund projects, right? I guess it was only 150 million that was collected as part of the investment DAO, so that that DAO can actually do a collective voting and invest into projects, right? But there was a hack, and I think 130 or 120 million was taken out of that treasury, right? And after that, DAOs never got a lot of traction, for years. But then slowly, a lot of these protocols became DAOs, and they made this concept more popular, right? And the definition is very simple, right? Decentralized autonomous organization. I think DAOs are an invention that is needed when you want to run internet communities, right, or digital economies, right? We talk about blockchain, that blockchain has powered digital economies, and when blockchain is decentralized, right, it's run by the community. How should the organizations be run by the community, right? So DAO is the answer. So DAO enables the participants to be an equal, you can say, voice in running the organization. And obviously, blockchain powers those DAOs, right? So that's what DAOs are. And for me, I really like the concept. And if you see my header image in Twitter, it says DAO or die, right? So the way I see digital economies growing and becoming more powerful is by adopting a DAO structure, right? Me, Rashmi, Santosh, we have all tried to run a lot of communities, right? And these communities were more volunteer driven, but when you apply the concept of DAOs into it, it suddenly becomes more powerful, because people can participate in that, say they have a voting right? So you can say it can be run in a true democratic fashion. I do agree that not every organization that calls themselves DAO are 100% there yet, but I see hope that we will achieve that vision, right, where we give power to the crowd, right, power to the masses. So Santosh, off to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Shivendu, putting that thought. Yeah, I think coming to what you shared, taking that thought further. I think in a world that has been centuries now, businesses have been started, and many ways there have been there has been unorganized form of community agreements or consensus to how do we run, right, whether it is a small community in you take any nation or any country in terms of their village panchayat to all that, right? So there were things like this existing, but that was not coded form. That was it was always centralized. It had always had no formal structure to create it, right? It is very hard for anybody to replicate that unless there are strong sort of agreement on everything. I think with the DAO, finally the world has got a form, right, a factor, an approach, a framework, however you want to call it, to literally create or convert or transform anything to a DAO. When I say anything, there is a star mark. Anything that is relevant for a DAO. So I think DAO is here to stay in a larger form. I was in another space shortly. A lot of open source community that we saw in the year, like whether Apache on a web server or a Linux, they were all run. Yeah, there was a centrally managed run, and a lot of those decisions and all were very hidden. Nobody knew what decisions were take. Why some company finally took over a open source community had no outcome. With the DAO, the world is now perfectly giving a tool that is absolutely great on consensus, great on deciding the outcomes, great on distributing the benefits, great on taking the roles and responsibilities in a right community spirit. So finally, if we say communities have been always driving businesses, but now DAOs are really going to make it happen in a very, when I say structured way, not in centrally, but in a very structured way, where there are structures and frameworks in place. So I'm definitely passionate about how DAOs are going to have impact in the world. And let me stop there.
Fantastic. I think both of you brought a very valid point. Before I go to Pranav and Vatsal, I see the DAO framework which exists today on blockchain to bring in a fantastic structure to incentivize the contributions and to incentivize the outcome of how the DAO evolves over a period of time. Over to Pranav.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the DAOs were a creation to address the need of the decentralized Web3 participants. So it wasn't called Web3 at that time, but more so that, if I don't have a legal framework on the real world in like a bank account, how do I sort of organize myself to be able to carry out financial transactions or create a consensus for any decision? And DAOs were pretty naturally there. And I think more importantly, every NFT ultimately has to become a DAO in its final form.
Very interesting point. Vatsal?
Yeah, hi guys. Hi. I don't know if you guys read the news. Petango, it's an Israeli VC firm. It's got about $3 billion under management. They've just launched Investment DAO. I think Subhendu was talking about investment DAOs. So they've just launched it, and basically it's a VC firm actually. But they're going to be breaking the model and saying, look, we're disrupting this VC typical model of like LP contribution, and they'll be creating their own token. I do disagree on one point that every NFT project needs to have a DAO. I don't think that's how it's considered. And I think one of the facts I would like to share here is like, what makes NFT projects really successful is the strength of the community itself. I mean, the Bored Ape, the reason they're successful is because each Bored Ape owner constantly like posts about his or her lifestyle on Instagram, constantly like tweets and retweets. I think that is more powerful. The DAO structure is actually very similar structures involving like an unlimited, like a unregistered partnership, let's say, from an Indian context. But the thing with the DAO is what people don't realize is that DAOs don't have legal work that is required, the other thing is most people are calling it DAO, but they're not really doing a DAO. They're just calling themselves DAOs, but they're basically like either a Discord community or a Telegram group. So I think there is a amount of centralization that I'm seeing in most DAOs, and I think as a principle, there will be an element of centralization in the DAO structure because ultimately, even if you look at basic constitutions, even if you go by the standard voting mechanism, ultimately it's controlled by the majority. So if you have majority, you're technically still centralized. So I think that's just some thoughts I want to add on these aspects.
Fantastic. Anup has raised his hand. Anup?
And hi Rashmi, a long time, now see. After the clubhouse, I think it's probably the first time that we are meeting. So quickly, I want like highlight two specific points, from a challenger standpoint, based on my experience so far. The first part is technical, right? I do think, for efficient participation, really, we need to have probably more DAOs evolving. A number of DAOs probably they have to switch to better chain voting dynamics. These days, most DAOs they have off-chain, using snapshot or something. But I do think layer 2 will kind of solve that problem a little bit. I do believe, a number of DAOs will be kind of moving, voting and some of those aspects to on-chain when layer 2 comes up. So I do think that will make it more legit, and from a actual decentralization standpoint, we can finally get there, right? So today, even if we are talking about a DAO, most of the voting and everything is still centralized and on-chain. So I think from a technical standpoint, we have a path, but the other aspect is pretty much the human factor, right? So even today, in a traditional, shareholding model, most of the times, actual shareholders, the retail shareholders, they don't really have a voice. I mean, most of them don't go to vote. Most of them yield their voting rights to, other parties. And I do see the same challenges happening in the DAO world as well. It is a function of that human, I would say, behavior. Most people don't really act on proposals, right? I mean, if you're part of a DAO, you probably know this. How many actual proposals that you read and vote for, and most probably you will probably just delegate your voting rights when you stake or something like that. So I believe there are some of these human behavioral aspects that we should solve as well to make the DAO efficiently functional. And then finally, one last point I want to bring up is, I do think regulations could actually legitimize DAOs, to a higher grade. And what that means is, today, for example, we know that DAOs, I mean, there is no real legal backing for a DAO to hold an off-chain property, right? So hopefully at some point when there is a legal backing for representing assets on chain, maybe using synthetic mechanisms or whatever, I do think then we will really see the potential of DAOs and collective ownership and all of that. I mean, but first I think for us to get there, the framework have to evolve so that we can really start representing our houses and buildings and land and everything on chain as NFTs or so, which can be tied back to DAOs in a legitimate manner.
Fantastic, thank you. Let's talk about few that we are inspired from, that we like, and what's really working with them, and we'll take it forward from there. Anyone want to talk about it?
I like
What are you
developer.
seeing in the gaming
I like
space?
developer DAO. Developer DAO is good.
Okay. So what about developer DAO you like?
I like that these guys are actually kind of like empowering that devs. They're like, I met someone in Pune because I was there on a roadshow, and I saw like empower. Like, what I like about DAOs is when people are in the DAO, they should be proud of it and they should be able to talk about it, and they should have like a slight like respect and love for what they are in. So I think that's, even while building a Web3 startup, anything, right? You need to create a team which like really loves and respects the business, the team, and I think that's what creates a successful DAO. Because the whole point is, if you're giving power back to the people, then the people need to give power back to the venture, right? So DAOs, developer DAO is amazing. There's a friend of mine who's basically working with Polygon. It's called Maison DAO. So they're trying to do like a metaverse fashion stuff. I'm looking at that as well, looking to invest. But other than that, yeah, nothing specific that came to mind. I like this, what this Israeli VC firm has done, Pitango. I don't know, but it's obviously going to be more of a centralized DAO because it'll be basically for their LPs. It'll just be another pooling vehicle. But at least it's cool because a traditional VC fund with $3 billion under management is taking a change and saying, okay, fine, we're adopting this, Web3 style investment fund. So yeah, I mean, these are the initial ones I can think of.
Cool, thanks. Rashmi, what are you seeing on the gaming side?
Great, thanks. Yeah, no, nice meeting. Sorry, I was off. I was listening in then. So yes, I haven't really given a lot of deep research into understanding or researching DAOs, existing DAOs, which are how they are doing it. I do hear a lot about developer DAOs as a structure, which people have been talking about a lot. There is something which recently came about called Arts DAO, which is essentially investing into NFTs and trying to. They formed kind of a game, Jedi Council of sorts, to invest, and that's looks like an interesting thing. It's mostly an investment DAO, I would say, but calling it Arts DAO and focusing on that was a good one. I believe, if I have to say, I think we are seeing a Gen Zero version of DAO today. That's going to evolve a lot. We haven't seen. I mean, it could go a long way. And what I feel is like Subhendu was saying, uh, internet companies could be run by communities, uh, and this is one of the way uh, uh, in which companies would be able to move forward more and more with decentralized governance policies versus in a governance way. I hope that the combination of a DAO and open source code and everything comes together to essentially build a truly decentralized organization where every product getting developed, every feature getting developed, every engineer working, there is no employee, but everyone is contributor, and things are running smoothly in a decentralized fashion. I mean, that's the utopian dream for me.
Cool. Thanks, Rashmi. Go ahead, Subhendu.
Yeah, so thanks, Rashmi. Thanks, Vimlesh. Vimlesh, what we need to also see is that DAO as a concept can be applied to a lot of scenarios, right? In some scenarios, they work beautifully and they also started working, right? In some scenarios, it still is a utopian view, like Rashmi mentioned. Right? The way, let's say, an investment DAO would work, right? I think it's very simple and a very straightforward use case. There are, let's say, 15 people who want to invest, and they form a DAO, and the DAO invests, right? Or a collector DAO, right? You cannot pull in like you cannot buy a very blue chip NFT, right? You bring in money together, pull in money together, and you collect those NFTs, right? So those kind of use cases are very straightforward, and it's working well, right? For example, the Ukraine DAO, which was there for giving grants, right? So I think in those use cases, the DAO structure is working quite well. And as we progress towards more Web3 companies, giving more power to your user base, right? We all talk about that Web3 is run by communities, right? So we, as founders, have to give power to the community. And that's where the Rashmi's utopian view picture, saying that the company is run by the community, the company employees are contributors, and there is no central authority, right? So that's the utopian view. So I think we will go there, but there are obviously good DAO use cases that are coming up, and investment grants, collector DAOs is one of them, which is quite good. And I also like what some of the service DAO guys are doing, right? Like, let's say you come together, you form a team, you deliver a project, and the compensation is divided pro rata based on your work, right? So that service DAO model is also going to pick up in the coming days.
Fantastic. So this is literally like in the Indian context, in the real life, we have the Amal Cooperative Society. Right? It's almost the entire society runs it by themselves, and they reap the benefits of it. It's only that there's no proof. The proof is the membership and the participation and the contribution of milk that they do. So very interesting.
True.
So we'll also talk about some challenges in that space.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, if you go back probably around 250 years or 300 years back, right? Why do we need any structure, right? We need these structures of LLCs, LLPs, private limited, PT, C Corp, S Corp, right? So that we can bring people together and they can work, they can collectively do things towards a common goal. Right? That was the purpose of these structures, right? And to be honest, these structures don't exist, right? We are all working towards a private limited company. Where is that private limited company? It does not exist, right? Today, it exists in some record of MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, right? So these private limited companies were formed because in UK, uh, for these entrepreneurs, these businessmen wanted to put money into the railroads, but they did not want to take a lot of liability on them because there were accidents happening right on the trains. So that's why this structure of private limited or limited liability companies were formed, so that there is no liability or very less liability on the founder, on the entrepreneur who's taking the risk. Right? Things have changed in these 300 years. We are in a digital era, right? So we need structures. We need structures of DAOs, right? So that internet people can collaborate and work and deliver value, right? So I think that's why this change is bound to happen, right? How do we go to the utopian view that Rashmi mentioned? I think that is the test of the time. It will take some time, but I think we are on the right path.
Can I add something to
Yes.
what Shubhendu just said? So Shubhendu made an excellent point with respect to DAOs and how service DAOs especially are coming together and doing a great job. So I am myself a contributor at Bankless, and the entire thesis of Bankless was to kind of decentralize consulting, right, or media organizations per se. And in Bankless, because it's a DAO, it's decentralized. It's really up to any individual to come out and say, this is an initiative I would love to take on. Put it to the community, get an approval, and then he's given the support that he needs to build that particular service or practice. So because of that, Bankless, within a year, they have almost 5 newsletters, 3 podcasts, active social media community. There's a consulting arm to it, which is doing a whole bunch of things. They have an index. They have a financial DeFi. They're working on a card, a debit card, a crypto credit card, so as to speak. I mean, the number of projects going on within that DAO, right, is insane. I can't imagine a traditional structured organization being able to achieve or attempt so much in so less a time. And that's only possible because you have a fundamentally different structure where every individual is not a employee but a CEO in himself as long as he's ready to take an initiative. So to that extent, I completely agree with Shubhendu's points. New time needs new structures, and with the core contributor thesis, people becoming more self-employed. I think these kind of structures are just giving a lot of leverage and power to people to be able to pursue and do what they want to do. So there's another element, social element to it, why DAOs have become so popular, or they have gained so much in so less time, so as to speak.
Chirag, by the way, I love Bankless content. So a lot of kudos to you guys.
Hey, guys, I just want to come in on this point here because, funnily enough, I am currently running my own legal practice in a very similar way as a DAO, by the way. So I'm probably one of the few lawyers who gives equity to my associates. No one is an employee in my team, so I've been decentralized in my brain for a very, very long time, even in a very traditional industry, right? So what I'm going to say next is not a reflection of me, but also a counterpoint that I want to bring out, right? Look, Naval says that the larger the group, the less the decision making happens. I'm just putting something out here now, right? Now the challenge is the LLC, Subhendu, as a lawyer, I'm telling you, the reason that limited liability was introduced was not just because of some railway thing, of tax planning. Now the challenge is if there is no legal entity, the issues that will come later is liability. Because suppose you invest in a cartel by mistake. Now, will all the investors sitting in Nigeria, New Zealand, India, China, will they all be criminally liable? This is a big issue that no one is talking about. Service DAO, people talking about, I agree. In fact, I'm already in touch with a few lawyer friends of mine to set up a separate service DAO for crypto and Web3 companies. But the concern there is also similar, that who takes how much responsibility, and how does the biggest issue is contribution, and how do you ensure that the contribution is written into the smart contract, and how do you measure intangible, because service business is typically intangible. So I'm coming in from a position where I'm actually studying this day in day out, and I'm talking to people who are doing it globally, and these are some of the challenges also that are there in DAOs. And the last point I'll make is that most successful businesses that we have grown up seeing had some centralization. The challenge is in a DAO, The closest example I can take is the Amazon rainforest. I was reading this book by Vishen Lakhiani, who runs Mind Valley. He talks about his ayahuasca journey, and he talks about what they do in, like, the Amazon forest, and they sit around and they think about what the villagers were dreaming of, and then they decide what the villagers should do about a eventuality, right? It's like an Amazonian trait. And the closest I can think of from a DAO is that Amazon rainforest. But the liability, the execution, and the contribution, and being fair and authentic in rewarding contribution, I think these are the main points we should be talking about. Thanks.
Cool, good ones, Vatsal. Yeah, Rahul, go ahead, and then we'll bring on Raghu.
Yeah, I think Vatsal, you mentioned the point. Like, I mean, borrowing from Naval, that the more the people, the lesser decisions made. That's true, but that's also true in the case, like, even in a two-partner company also, if two people disagree, then they can't be a decision and people split up. Recent cases in Indian startup ecosystem, you'll see people splitting up because of mutual disagreements. So I think it's more about are people willing to disagree and still work and still make progress. And a good example of very successful DAOs that I've seen is the Maker DAO. I mean, they have been able to make such a great stable coin, as compared to, if you see Terra, which was so hyped up, but it was completely centralized and fell due to the arrogance of one single person who was having too much of stake and too much of say in that. Whereas Maker DAO has been there much earlier and they're still standing strong. So uh, I believe it's the amount people can stake, and that's the true beauty of blockchain, right? That, okay, if some of money and they're staking in a lot of money, but then there are other smaller players who can come together and they can reverse a decision, or they can equally stake that much of an amount, so it keeps the balance. And also, if you see uh, how the traditional markets are, that if, let's say, I have to work with somebody in a different country, then I have to get a license over there, get a residency permit over there to join their company, or have all these hurdles to cross. But why DAOs really got popularized in the last 2 years is because when people were stuck at home, they really wanted to do something together. They wanted to work together, and people came together, and DAO gave them the structure to work together, in the sense of they didn't have those legal foundations and worries that whether I have to be an employee, I have to sign this contract or that. They were all part of a DAO, and their both duties, rights, and benefits taken care of by the DAO structure. So I think that's when it got really popularized.
Rahul, it's funny you mentioned MakerDAO. MakerDAO is suffering a lawsuit right now for $28 million because of misrepresentation. I think the CEO, I don't know what the case. I think they were, because there was allegations by their DAO members that there was a misrepresentation and deliberate attempts at frauding their investors. So again, I'm saying none of the DAOs are free from challenge, and the example you give has a challenge. So I'm very much for DAOs. I'm just wondering if the smart contract technical efficiencies have reached that level where contribution and distribution can be made fair, and especially in service DAO models, how do you measure intangible value? It's like in a CA firm. Let's look at KPMG, right? Every partner takes home a different salary. Now, imagine if KPMG was a DAO. How would you create that contribution? What if someone is sleeping at work? How do you measure that? So it requires a lot of technical, not just a DAO, but it requires you to have other CRMs which actually measure your productivity, your timelines, everything. So I'm just saying that that's probably the reason why mainstream adoption of DAOs hasn't happened yet. I'm just being a devil's advocate. Yeah.
That's really not an accurate representation in my view of how things work, because in DAOs, specifically in service DAOs, contributions are way more efficient as compared to organizations. I mean, in organizations, I have not come across one person who believes the salary is not in line with his contribution, is in line with his contribution. Everybody is unsatisfied, right? Everybody is, period. In DAOs, it's done very differently. I don't know if you have experienced how Coordinate works, which is typically the most used DAO contribution tool. And now there are many more better tools coming out in the market, but I would still say that I think majority of the DAOs still use Coordinate, and Coordinate works on a mechanism of issuing give tokens, and contributors worked with you will then decide together who deserves how much based on his contribution. So if you're actually sleeping on work, if you didn't deliver what you had assigned or taken up, or if the work that you did had limited or no impact, then the other contributors will automatically issue to you lesser gifts, and hence you would end up getting lesser new remuneration or contribution for your work. So essentially what happens is, because there's a social element already embedded into the mechanism, the contribution is more often than not accurate and in line with how other team members value your contribution in the project. I think my personal experience is that it's way more fair than the classic organizational structures where you are given a salary, and whether you sleep or not sleep on work, you still get that salary end of the month. Here, every project you get rewarded to your contribution. I feel it's actually way more efficient.
Hey
Great. I
guys,
think,
Anup,
guys, I'm just going to get in, to encourage a little more, because I think fantastic debate. This is the spirit of why makes a lot of sense and going to evolve as we go on. Can we bring Raghu, and then I think after that we are going to bring Anup also. Anup, please stay tuned. Let Raghu come in, and then we'll come back to you. Raghu, over to you.
Thanks for the opportunity, Santosh. I think a lot of good points here. I joined in a little late to kind of listen in on what was going on. You're not wrong. We're still super early when it comes to DAOs, but three things that are probably worth thinking about. I think one, Vatsal's absolutely right, the sense that the contracting infrastructure for running complex organizations as DAOs is still not mature, and there's a lot of work to do. And so DAOs that perform very, very straightforward, measurable, discrete functions are something that can be run sustainably now. But as soon as a lot of human elements enter that space, it becomes a little hard to hard code that into logic, for all cases in while running a DAO. Secondly, DAOs that do fair launches are perhaps uh, better suited to truly serve the community as opposed to the whole retail in institutional arbitrage that exists today in crypto. Someone comes in at like uh, at a lower. You invest early, you come in at a lower valuation, but the people who contribute and make the DAO valuable come in at the price of the public, and that essentially brings in dynamics that uh, is hard to it's hard to justify for the guys who actually make the DAO sustainable through its service. And third is the size of the DAO. Uh, I think that there is a case for talking about the Dunbar number and keeping uh, you know a high concentration of contributors as opposed to lurkers that happen in most DAOs at this point. Like, what is the contributor to member ratio in most of these DAOs? And it is still something that I feel like vastly skewed towards the lurkers at this point, and that to a large part is purely from a financial standpoint as opposed to people who actually make that DAO valuable. So I think these are, well, at least with the DAOs that we are advising at Builders Tribe, I think these are some thinking points for us that think function, keep it as simple as possible. If you want to go the DAO route right now, think fair launch to ensure that the community member gets as much as anybody else, and so the contributor gets as much as anybody else. And three is think size, so that coordination, which is still perhaps one of the biggest problems in DAOs, is slightly kept simpler. I hope that was I hope that perspective was useful.
Fantastic,
Yeah,
fantastic point, Raghu.
yeah. Anup, over to
Um,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
please.
Oh, thank you. So I just want to like comment on one specific aspect. I think what Sal mentioned about LLPs and LLCs and the structures. But we also know in India, for example, right, we also have very massive co-op models like Amul, for example, right? I think they evolved as a cooperative society. So, it's not necessarily new for us to really, have those kind of cooperative models. Now, today most of the DAOs are kind of very flat, but I do believe, it is just part of the action. The more and more we progress, the more kind of abstractions and structures we build, like concepts like time lock evolved. I do think we will actually see more layers on top of the concept of DAO itself that would potentially, help with the coordination, right? So I do think this is kind of a shift from this corporate model to a cooperative capitalism model, right? And that is one of the perspectives. Now, one more quick comment, on this concept of accountability and ownership. Again, going back to the initial point that I mentioned, I do think it is not just about the DAOs, it is about the whole space. So as and when the regulations mature around crypto in general, around NFTs, around synthetics, right? I do think that will actually bring in a lot more clarity as well to that ownership space going forward. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great. I have Vikas. Vikas, if you could come in and talk about your perspective on the DAOs, that'll be great.
Thank you, Santosh, for the opportunity. And great point contributed by Raghu, Anup, I think everyone. So I personally feel that DAO is bringing a very disruptive model. Like generally they say like strong opinion loosely held. I think DAOs are the exact representation of that, because the community is focused on the North Star, but it really does not matter that how many people contribute, who contribute there. The DAO doesn't even speak, doesn't even ask for the identity. The great part about internet and the logical extension of the previous internet to the blockchain was it doesn't ask you who you are. It doesn't ask about your race, caste, background. They just ask the output. If there is a definite, if there is a amazing machine which can actually like figure out the output. So Gitcoin is a very good example of this. Like Gitcoin measures the output and then they give it back to you whatever you contributed for, right? Gitopia is again coming up one product like this which are doing this. All these products are now because everything is so distributed in nature, the only one thing matters now is the output. So I think DAO represent a very flexible model of working towards a goal within staying your boundaries of comfort of your skills. When I say comfort, it's comfort of your skills, and still finding out amazing DAOs which can actually where you can contribute and allow a very specific goal to be the delta that you can add, you get paid for your delta. So I think DAOs allow all these mechanical turks, I think gonna get replaced by these small tasks, maybe filling a form, doing the captchas. I think small things till the big decision making things, whether to do what with your let's say recent. I think one example I can bring is the ENS governance. Do you know what happened in the ENS governance? Like there are few smart contracts, or sorry, there are few addresses where they have more than one ENS names, and the community airdrop, the ENS community airdrop the tokens only to the people who held the one of the ENS name as the primary name for your wallet address, right? But eventually the community opened a thread on the forum and they said that everyone should get as per their token as per the number of ENS names that they have held. And then that's the power of all the decentralized power making and allowing the people to actually coordinate on a certain goal to actually figure out what is the best way to even airdrop the ENS tokens. Small things, but it speaks about volume. How can small things can be changed? How small things can be contributed upon and push the DAOs in the direction where they wanted to. So I think these are my on this topic. Thank you.
Super. I think fantastic points, Vikas. Thank you. I would like to bring Pranab. Pranab, you had something to talk.
So I'm going to reset the room for everybody who joined us. Thank you so much for joining. Today's topic is much ado about nothing. And when we were trying to figure the topic out, English was like, I don't know how much Shakespeare the current generation knows, but I guess it held on and enough people have joined us this evening. So we're trying to do this twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays. I've also in the Cradle tagged a tweet that has the community we're building on Twitter for foundership, which is a new feature at Twitter and allows us to sort of post tweets and share tweets amongst the community also. Just wanted to get Santosh in to share with us about the Coach DAO, which is part of something that's being built at foundership. And though it's not currently at a DAO level where the token has been released, that's something that we aim to do and
Thanks, Rob. Thanks. Yeah. So I think, as we, we're having a fantastic discussion around. I think the motivation, as Subhendu started the topic, right? Having been around, what we have seen is that our ecosystem has a fantastic set of people, operator mindset, right? People who are literally focused on another founder to succeed, and you get so many of them at founder level. We are not even talking about angel investors or VCs or anything like that. We are talking about purely founders. The last decade of India's growth has been because somebody somewhere kind of enabled folks to succeed. Now, in a very old world way, you will able to do that in an unstructured way and just move on. But we know that as entrepreneurs, as founders, we are here creating wealth for a large ecosystem, the company, and making almost a lot of people's life better. Right? That's the ambition that we are in. Hence, we thought, how about getting this operator mindset folks, as whether they are founders, they are leaders, they've been there, done that, a lot of things in the Web3, and we have kind of fortunately have a fantastic set of people who are part of now this Coach DAO. It's an off-chain, but living the philosophy of Web3 to say that as a Coach DAO, we can engage with someone who have an idea or a little later stage, already built an idea but needs support. How about engaging Coach DAO, specific coaches to help the folks to build in the right way, getting the right direction? Because at the end of the day, founders' life is the hardest life. If you go in a wrong direction, it's huge cost. So the Coach DAO's ambition is to help folks, to enable folks to go in the right direction. And the benefit of going right direction is that the equity or token that is given for this engagement is also distributed among the Coach DAO. Right, so this way we are living the philosophy of saying give fast, enable a fantastic ecosystem to evolve, and contribute the coaches respect the coaches for their time, their intellect, their passion, and see a thriving ecosystem of all win-win-win. That's the Coach DAO. I thought I'll share with the audience here. Thanks, Pranab, for the plug.
Cool. So anybody else would like to speak on DAO and definitely want to have people share their experiences of being part of them firsthand, because I think a lot of us can sort of learn and it's really difficult to get that experience on the outside.
Sure. I think if we can take one key pointers, or what are we reading or thinking about DAO. So I think we can. I see DAO as a continuation. I think that is exactly what it came out during the discussion. That DAO is in the very early days. Each of us are definitely deep diving. So I think as maybe Pranav, just a suggestion, maybe just a key pointers from each of the speakers to say, hey, what is that they are looking forward to? What are they doing, or what are they reading? And I think that will be a good one for everybody to piggyback on their worldview and knowledge.
Sure,
Yeah,
perfect.
like
Rashmi, you
closing
want to go
comments.
ahead?
Yeah.
Yep. Rashmi, you want to go first?
See, I think we have been saying the same thing since so long. So DAOs are very early, very early days in DAOs. I think, but I believe that there is something unique to DAOs. And as we understand more, as we see the next generation coming in, as we see better contracts coming in, we would see more and more companies adopting DAOs. At least a part of their organizations will go into DAOs, and could be a big thing in the making. I mean, there are so many different specific industries, categories, and many of them can actually focus and get into some form of DAO. I'm very, very optimistic and hopeful.
Awesome. So
Uh, Adding to Rashmi's point, I'm very hopeful that DAOs are the new structure for internet economies, digital economies, right? Communities. But how do they evolve? And adding to Vatsal's point, how do we manage the contribution, right? How do we measure the contribution of people who are part of a DAO, right? Can we do it on chain? And specifically when you're doing a very subject, right? As that's where we need more innovation from the builders. If they can solve it, right, that'll be great, right? And that's how we will see more adoption of DAOs in different structures and different kind of communities.
thanks, Subhendu. Anup, you want to go next?
Yeah. So first of all, there's a strong Balaji's, you know, tone to this whole conversation, which is really exciting. So I see essentially DAOs as a vehicle for change, right? I think I already talked about this shift, that all of us are dreaming from a corporate model to a cooperative model. And I do think that is probably, the need of the hour. If you really think about what is happening in the world today, the the corporate model, the Wall Street model is kind of tuned towards profit, right? Uh, and the problem with that is, we kind of end up exploiting those, without necessarily giving back, which is creating this huge wealth gap, right? Which is driving again a lot of challenges. So you really look at the economic impact, you look at all the challenges we are facing today. If we get this right, Davos can be that for change where we drive participation, inclusion, and honestly a cooperative model for driving that economic development, because everything else is kind of driven by economics, right? The incentive structure today is screwed up. In the corporate world, we all know that. We want to change that. So hopefully we will get there. Those are my closing comments.
Thanks, Anup. Vikas, you want to go next? Thanks for coming back on as speaker.
Yes, first of all, I really like the tone. Like when Anup said that it's like more of a Balaji's vision. I would love to have a discussion with the same panel again. Like just talking about Balaji's was right kind of phenomena. What for all the things he has been right. I think that would just make everyone go gaga about like all the things that he has been saying, and things has been becoming the way exactly what he has been promising, or is just speculating, I guess. But it was all the educated guesses. So yeah, coming back to this thing, I think DAOs are like really emerging in very good shape now that it is empowering the least the way you say like leaves of the tree, right? So at the bottom of the pyramid, people can actually, bottom of the pyramid means like more of the educated folks, like who used to take a lot of time to start contributing value, but suddenly the proliferation of DAOs are them now to immediately start contributing, like the bachelor, like all the graduates now from the first year itself can create themselves with the DAO and evolve over the period of like say 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, and think like how a new ecosystem can be managed when and around a single common value. Those things are definitely gonna empower the new age leaders which are gonna come, just because today DAO is allowing them to actually contribute on a very preliminary level. So I think DAOs are actually in a very passive way actually seeding the seeds of new age leaders which are gonna create a very crypto economic models which will incentivize everyone. So I think this is very I think I'm very optimistic about everything happening in the Web3 space. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Santosh. Thanks, Subhendu.
Thanks, Vikas. Vitsal, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Great conversation hosted, Santosh. As always, you're doing a great job. I as I said, I have a few reservations. My main 3 points will be: how do you measure contribution on chain? How do you ensure legal validity? Because tomorrow, if something goes wrong, who's liable? It's a very, very important point. The only jurisdiction currently which recognizes DAOs is Wyoming. There is no other legal jurisdiction which is recognizing them. Number three, there is less than 0.5%. If you read the reports, there's less than 0.5% active involvement on DAOs. And usually what happens is that the whales in those projects typically have majority control. So is a DAO truly decentralized? And I would urge and encourage everyone here to read Kathy's article in the Financial Express. I think it came out in March, and she's with Antler, and she's extremely smart, and she's written an amazing article which I think explains so many issues around DAOs that if everybody just had that as a like forget Balaji, no one was going to meet Balaji. Like we have people in our own ecosystem working at Antler, working in, us guys. Let's talk about like what we're putting out. I think that's great content. So I would really encourage everyone to read it because she does summarize some of the main issues. Thanks.
Perfect. So, Santosh, next.
Yeah, I think I think fantastic discussions and a lot of great learnings equally here. I think as someone talked about it, it is still early days, but I think being a programmer's world, right? I have been a programmer, so I'm going to be seeing the world how we can program, and I think DAO is my way that liberty to give it that back to the world to say, hey, you have now have something to create, right? To literally create new structures, new ways to do it. I think I'm totally in on that. Yes, the legal aspect of it, as Vatsal has solid points, the legal part of it, the real, how DAO is fully utopian views can be done and managed. Yeah, I think those are all going to evolve. It may not evolve, but I think the programming part of that, yes, there is a DAO, and yes, this is can be implemented to certain kind of communities, and right away, right from today. And again, not going to the detailed part of the legal and all that, but as a philosophy, I think that is my take to be very, very, very bullish about it.
Perfect. Awesome. Bimlesh, let's have you.
Sure. Thank you. I think DAO as a concept in the offline world has been really proven across multiple countries, across multiple societies, and that's how truly successful communities are run. In the internet space, I think along with participation, I see two challenges that needs to be resolved. One which Vatsal brought out fantastically on the legal side. Second, I think from a work completion is the how do you set accountability now, right? Where everyone is contributing open source manner, and yet we want people to be held accountable. And when we talk about accountability, that's when centralized structures came in to ensure that people are driven to achieve certain things within a certain time frame, right? And I see that element part right now in several structures that to be missing or to be the weaker link. So I see accountability as a challenge to solve, both from a legal aspect and from a deliverable point.
Perfect. So yeah, I think perfect, right? So I think DAOs are amazing as a tool. What for me personally, of course, a lot of legal aspects in Web3 are still gray, right? If not even black. So that's something we all are learning to live with, and this is crypto experimentation 1.0. It's going to get clearer as the space evolves. But more importantly, I think DAOs, from the speed and global nature of their very structure, allow us a lot of opportunities. And Constitution DAO was one such thing which came together in less than a week. And we've seen so many other examples also. So I think it's going to be super important that these structures, and the best part is we now have a structure where we can get financial people voting, some form of distribution, all of it into one place. So yep, lots.
Yeah, we lost you, Pranav, a bit.
Sorry, I think I pressed on mute. Okay.
Yeah.
So perfect. So everybody, thanks a lot. See you on Sunday, and look forward to having your feedback. Please join our community. I've put the tweet on the Cradle, so feel free to join in and share any important tweets. That's I don't think we can do what we're doing at Foundership without it. So everybody over here is part of that, and look forward to interacting with you all more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Good night and good day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Super.
you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.